welcome back. Time for Opinion Court. Thank you for staying with us. It's time to discuss, of course, the big events of the day. If you want to talk to us, 22422 is our SMS line. And if you're online, please use the hashtag Opinion Court. You can tweet us directly at Citizen TV Kenya or at Ann Kiguta and with an E. I'll reintroduce my guests to you. Next to me on my left is NASA Co-Principal Isaac Ruto, and next to him is lawyer Kamodho Waiganjo. To my right is Charles Kanjama, who's also an advocate, and next to him, Edward Kisiangani, our resident political analyst. So the day that we have been waiting for finally came, and we heard NASA reveal their top two lineup. Isaac, let me start with you. Of course, we heard all the names, but the interest really is on the presidential flag bearer, and that was announced as Raila Odinga. It didn't come as much as a surprise for many Kenyans. Given that this is a lineup that we've seen before, save for yourself being part of that team, what convinces you that this is the team that can do what it didn't do in the last election, and that's beat Jubilee?
The 2013 general election was a different scenario. It was heavily influenced by different factors that are no longer factors at the moment. For example, the question of the ICC was a serious matter on the agenda at the political level. It was a serious agenda that persuaded the Rift Valley and the Central Province and all their sympathizers to unite to extricate the three from the predicament at the Hague. That was a very powerful, gluing factor. It wasn't basically because they had any agenda, any developmental agenda or a political belief that was discernible at that time. Obviously, as of now, that does not obtain as of now. What we have currently is basically their performance. We are not even looking at the performance in terms of extricating themselves from the Hague, because Kenyans were also divided as to whether they should continue or whether they should actually get out. So that there was a serious division. Right now, that isn't there. Now we are looking at the hard facts. The hard facts are unemployment is at unmanageable levels at the moment, coupled with drought and all those other issues. Even the prices of foodstuff is terrible. Even payment of school fees at the moment in rural areas and places like Kibera, the lower classes have serious challenges on household incomes. So there are much more serious issues that Kenyans must grapple with at the moment than it obtained 4 years ago.
All right. And just before I open it up to my panel, the biggest criticism of the NASA outfit and lineup is that it appears to have coalesced on one issue: who gets what position. And many of these positions, non-existent. There's no guarantee that they will actually be there after the election. How do you respond to that?
That is, first of all, what is politics? Why are we in politics? Why are we contesting? Politics is about power sharing. Power sharing is about the distribution of those positions.
It's not about leadership and service?
No, it's about how to then control the resources for the benefit of the people the way you understand. It is the nation state is set up for the greatest good, for the greatest numbers. Now, the question is how do I achieve those things without resources and the power? And remember, the NASA arrangement is a pre-election coalition. Pre-election coalition. Every party has to know what is in store up front. They have been sent by their electorate and they must know what it is, and therefore what are the policies. That's why it has taken us time. We have been looking at the policies. What are we committed to? Like we in Chama Cha Mashinani, we are saying we want actualization of proper devolution, the Boma style that was agreed on. There are several agreements along that direction. We are satisfied at Chama Cha Mashinani that the policies we would like to push have been accommodated in NASA.
Right.
There are issues that the other parties also have. So we cannot just focus on the positions. I don't think that is the issue really. The issue is we are ready to share that responsibility up front, and we quickly get to understand that the president will be the first amongst equals within the Pentagon.
All right. Let me open it up to everyone else. Prof, I'll start with you. What do you think about NASA's announcement today of the lineup? Was it an anticlimax, or is there something significantly different, as Isaac has argued, that can make pretty much the same team that we saw in the last election, a winning side in this election?
First of all, to thank Isaac for being genuine, that in 2013 they used the ICC, and of course this is not the first time we have talked with Isaac over this matter. The governor admitted that even in 2013 they used lies. They cheated about ICC, and what they said about who fixed who was wrong, and they were disparate. So I think probably by going back to his former friends, he is trying to sanitize himself about the lie he used. He also admitted on this show some time back that he went on, so they cheated about Mao and how they fixed Raila over the Mao and the
but bring me to today.
So that's why I'm saying that because he has made those comments, it's important for people to understand him as a member of the Pentagon, where he's coming from, so that they make correct judgment of him. But now coming to the events of today, I think what has happened is an anticlimax, because nothing has changed. What you see is what happened in 2013. I don't know why they spent so much energy and time to announce what we already know. And most of us, even on this show, myself included, I suggested that the presidential candidate was going to be Raila Odinga. So what is new? What has changed?
You said the terrain has changed. The factors surrounding the election.
The people are the same, and we don't know whether they have changed their value system. Even if we are talking about development, we are talking about democracy. You have seen the same problems that they had in 2013, especially with regards to ODM in Nyanza. They have recurred. There is the actors like Oburu Odinga, Anyang' Nyong'o at the center. So what has changed? Now, what I just want to tell you is this, Anne. You know, this is deceit. In fact, some people have accepted posts which don't exist, but this is what political deceit is all about. The dominant feature is Raila Odinga, and he has actually ended up deceiving his colleagues, and now he's on top of things. The happiest people in this plot that you have had today is Jubilee. I argued on this show a long time ago that Raila Odinga was the Jubilee candidate in the court, and by extension now NASA. The Jubilee must be celebrating because they have got their candidate, because they enjoy it, and they will enjoy making sure that Raila does not win the elections.
Right.
Wait, Anne, you cannot stop me on this. I'm saying
I will have to, because we have other guests.
Yes, okay, I agree with you.
Charles, let me come to you. What do you think about the lineup, and is this a lineup that can excite the base? Can it inspire anything new from the NASA strongholds, something that they didn't already have?
I think, and for me, what I find curious as a lawyer is the positions that have been created. One for Isaac, deputy principal,
deputy premier,
cabinet secretary. Yes. And there are two of those positions, and there is a premier cabinet secretary. I was looking at the constitution.
Charles, before you get there,
yes,
let's start by answering my question. Is this a team that can excite the base to turn out the numbers that can score a goal?
Ultimately, I think the big prizes in our constitutional framework is the presidency and the deputy presidency. Those ones are provided in the constitution, and I think those who have those positions can excite their base. I'm not so sure about these new positions, including the one of Isaac, because they are being presented to Kenyans for the first time, and they do not have a constitutional or statutory basis. Their basis is on the basis of a pre-election agreement. I think we need to wait and see. We may pretend that we already know how Kenyans will respond to these matters, but we know that Kenyans keep surprising us in their electoral manifestations and alignment. So I think for me, I'll adopt a wait and see approach to the matter.
Kamodho, your thoughts on the lineup and the announcement today? What you expected?
I think it was the inevitable lineup. I am not sure that anyone who has watched the politics of COD and now renamed NASA expected anything different. I think, and I think let's first look at the positive thing. I think it's good that the team got together, because at least they delivered to the electorate a promise they had made.
Right.
Number two, I think it's good for our democracy that we have two strong parties in competition with each other. Also, because what it guarantees is we'll probably only have one round of elections. We're not going to have a by-election to determine, because we're only going to have two strong candidates. And number three, we'll have a very strong opposition. And I don't want to say which the opposition will be. Case, right? But I think most Kenyans can guess what the opposition will be, but it will be a strong one. But I think
he's taking a jab at you, Isaac.
No. By the way, my favorite governor knows I would wish for him to be the cabinet secretary for devolution. But I do think that NASA had a big challenge in at the same time maintaining the unity together by keeping Raila at the top of the ticket, and at the same time presenting something that appeared to be fresh. And I think they opted for the first one, which was to keep the team together. And the person I think NASA must say thank you to is the deputy president, in the sense that he once again, the deputy president to be in a NASA arrangement, in the sense that he in a sense is the one for the third time, in a sense, forfeited his guaranteed position as the person on the ticket for 2017. So I think they need to thank him for that. In terms of exciting their bases enough to undo 2013, I don't see that. Unless some very big dynamic thing happens. And let's agree that ideologically and philosophically, there is nothing exciting about the NASA brigade as opposed to Jubilee. The philosophy, the ideology of Jubilee and the NASA it is. There is nothing that can excite the base enough to bring numbers to undo the realities of 2013, unless something very major happens between now and the elections.
Let's go back to the question of positions, because as you've heard from the rest of the panel, these are positions that do not exist, and you were promised, people will say you were promised something that is not there, and you went for it, and there has been legal debate as to whether this provisions will need us to go to a referendum, or if it can be done by a presidential appointment. What is the rationale of the NASA team?
The structure of government will be decided by the president. It is done. And that unless we are arguing about the naming, if there is no Ministry of Devolution named in the Constitution, there is no Ministry of this, Ministry of that. They are cabinet secretaries. When you call them premier cabinet secretary in the organization of your government, and you structure that this particular deputy premier cabinet secretary is in charge of the economic sector, another one in the social sector, there is nothing unconstitutional about that. And we have debated that. We have had lawyers of equal stature, and I don't think there is anything wrong. I have listened to that presentation. We have combed this constitution, and I wish I remembered to come with my notes. I would have referred them.
I think we can loan you one right here. The constitution.
I don't want to start looking at that right now. I didn't initially come for that debate, but I think I can come another date to simply discuss those issues thoroughly, and you'll give us adequate time so that we can take them. It will bore Kenyans if we have to go through the various articles 132, 150, is it 152 also?
You've cited 151, 152.
Yes. So we can go through that and see the legal basis of this. But let me also tell you, it was not about telling me, Isaac Ruto, you've been promised a position. Chama cha Mashinani has been allocated upfront, say 3 cabinet positions. We will then look at the others in terms of the distribution in Kenya of the other faces. We are not the Chama cha Mashinani and the others. Maybe there are other Kenyans who are going to join us later on, so we've left several. The point I'm saying is it is not an allocation to Isaac Ruto. I'm contesting for a gubernatorial seat in Bomet. This is an allocation to Chama cha Mashinani.
And so how do you intend to do that, by the way, in case, if NASA was to win this election and you're running for a gubernatorial post, and here you are with another appointment in waiting? I can
continue with my gubernatorial seat. Now, if I convince Waiganjo, for example, and he joins Chama cha Mashinani before we finish the elections, I can appoint him to be the Minister for Devolution, because he has
I think the president can do it. It sounds like you're not very confident about your choices.
I'm telling you,
your options rather.
No, I'm telling you that I can appoint Waiganjo to do that position that is called Deputy Premier. It is an allocation to Chama cha Mashinani.
So you're more...
I am here as, I'm in the Pentagon as a party leader of Chama cha Mashinani. Are we getting the point?
So you're more interested in the gubernatorial seat than a cabinet position?
The gubernatorial position right now. And that is my focus. But I'm also focused on ensuring that NASA wins.
I think the governor wants to eat with both hands, as the Ghanaian say. Let me agree with the governor.
I am the party leader of Chama cha Mashinani. Understand me as such. That's why I'm at the national level.
I suspect the government will have 21 deputy premiers.
Let me agree with the governor on something. That the positions as created, there's nothing unconstitutional about them.
Yes.
You can call your cabinet ministers whatever you want to call them. But there will not be anything bigger than what is in Article 152. They are going to be appointed at the discretion of the president. They are going to be approved by parliament, and parliament can refuse to approve them. They are going to be sacked by parliament if parliament wants to sack them. They are going to be fired by the president if the president wants to fire them, until you amend the constitution. So you can call them, the nomenclature can be different, but the constitution would have to be amended. And fundamentally, if you're going to have the same powers that should excite Honorable Ruto's base, because they don't want to be done to what some cabinet ministers have happened who are in a Pentagon, and they're now cooling their heels at home. So that's a fear. So
if they're CSs and they're going to keep this position to last, there will have to be some changes to the constitution. Otherwise, you're going through parliament.
I wanted to say this, that it's not only Article 152 of the Constitution that sheds light on this arrangement. There is also Article 153, which is very interesting, because it says that every cabinet secretary, each cabinet secretary is accountable individually and collectively to the president. My reading of the arrangement that has been brought out by NASA is that the premier and the deputy premier are meant to be kind of like super cabinet secretaries who have some kind of supervisory powers over other cabinet secretaries who are their juniors. And so the challenge is that Article 153(2), when it talks about each cabinet secretary being accountable to the president, seems to create a hindrance or an obstacle to being able to implement this particular structure. And so what I've been wondering after this lineup was unveiled is whether the MOU on its own will bring about the structure that NASA intends, or they will be forced immediately they get into office to attempt to amend Article 153 of the Constitution. Because if the Constitutional Court was to say that this structure is going against a clear constitutional provision, they would then need to marshal 2/3 of the majority in the Senate and the National Assembly to amend the Constitution to implement this power structure. And I think that is something that Isaac and his team need to think about.
So they would need to
that their lawyers have thought about this.
They would need to settle for just being ordinary CSs with the same powers as every other CS, answerable to the president, and if they needed anything, and also vetted by parliament, and if they wanted to keep anything beyond that, then there has to...
If they wanted to supervise other cabinet secretaries,
they can't do that,
and of course the Constitution says they have to be 14, then they may probably need to change the Constitution. This is an issue where maybe lawyers may have different views. But clearly, when you even look at the National Coordination Act, which was implementing these provisions of the Constitution, it contemplates that you cannot have a cabinet secretary supervising another. So that is going to be an interesting issue that lawyers are going to be reflecting on, and I think the general public in the district.
But also under Article 132, we know that the Constitution gives executive powers to the president, and since it gives the executive powers to the president, there is a small element within the agreement which says that in fact they should be consulted and agreement done with regard to the appointment of cabinet secretaries, because they are super guys. And the problem with this is this: constitutional, and I think I'm just supporting your point of view, constitutional, this is an affront on the powers that are given by the Constitution to the office of the President. So if the President does not agree with them, you remember Kalonzo said, if anybody violates this agreement, we shall come back to Uhuru Park.
Right.
If you go back to Uhuru Park to complain that the President didn't consult you, what do I care about? Because you are not quoting the Constitution. And you deserve to be treated badly because you are being treated, given something that is not in the Constitution.
Okay.
And so why do you expect sympathies from me?
I think what I would say, the President at that time, assuming
so if the President is alright,
let Kamoto make his point and then
he's standing for one term only. So he won't be very bothered that you are unhappy with him. He will do what he needs to do. What I would like to say is,
yes, I want to say, even if he doesn't stand for one term, when Kamoto, my brother, even if the President refuses to stand for one term, just because there was an agreement, in the constitutional terms, you will not have changed the clause which says that the President can go to up to a maximum.
All of you hold your thoughts and let Isaac
just one more before one more point. Yes. Just to conclude it, the discussion. I think the MOU appears to be a gentleman's agreement, and if you are a gentleman, you will hold to the terms of the agreement. Yes. But the question that is being raised is, if you are not a gentleman after you've acquired power, what is the recourse?
Let me tell you. First of all, you assume that the President would be a rock one. First of all, the assumption you make. This is a pre-election agreement, properly lodged now, according to law, at the political party's registrar. It is made public. Like from today, it is a public document. You will peruse through it, you will understand what is done. Now, how can I seek office with no honor? That is, after that, I start rubbishing everything. How then am I supposed to be trusted? It would be the most
unheard of thing in politics.
No, how will you then trust me with the management of government? As politicians, we try to ensure that as much as possible, like every other person really, you would like to have your word being respected. You will have to live up to your word. But this is not basically that. We have made that agreement there. And remember, these are 5 political parties, each with its own strength. Once you cross over, no one has the vast majority to run government. This is a commitment that has had to be made, and that is why it has taken us quite a bit of time discussing these issues. And we must live within the constitutional confines. The President indeed will make that decision, but it's clear upfront that, for example, in these 3 cabinet positions, he'll get them from Chama Chinane. He will expect me to give him the names, but the names will also be discussed with the Pentagon, because you can't just bring in any name and you expect that name to just be appointed, because there is still parliament. You still have to ensure there is regional balance, there is gender balance, there are so many other. Then there is also the ability of that person to do it. Now, nothing stops the President in ordering his cabinet in any cluster. The Constitution doesn't do that. It gives him the power. Now, we've made that commitment as of now. We cannot change the Constitution so that we can go to the elections. We must agree that this is something we are committed to. Like when I keep on pushing for devolution, which law forces me to do that? Which law?
But devolution is very clearly outlined in the Constitution.
It is outlined.
What you should get.
But
this one, you're hoping, as you said, that the gentlemen will keep their word.
And Governor, my bigger problem...
And whenever you vote for all these presidents, you've always expected them to keep their word, isn't it?
Actually, now, my bigger problem, Governor...
Let me tell you, there is a bigger covenant which the presidents enter with Raya.
Exactly.
They enter into a covenant that you vote for me. These are my deliverables. Now, when that president doesn't deliver, what happens?
But what happens if President Raila Odinga, quote unquote, forms government, ignores you and gives the 3 posts to Kanu? What will you do?
Which Raila Odinga are you talking about?
If he becomes... Because
no, you are telling about if...
No, suppose, let's look at it as a hypothetical.
I'm just asking you whether you have a
What would you do?
Let me also look at it.
Would you go to court?
And Kiguta invited you. Supposing you just came in up to this door and then you decided to walk back.
You know my bigger problem?
I would never invite you again.
There are several assumptions we make of human beings. That first of all, they are sane, that they are upright, that they understand the norms, that they understand the law, that they are also respectable people. By the time you are seeking such a high office, your word is very important. You see people in Japan, if somebody says you misuse a man, I remember another cabinet secretary in Japan who was found to have done some wrong things. He really felt bad, and he committed suicide. Not that anybody shot him, he just committed suicide, that he had actually dishonored everybody, including himself and his family, and he committed suicide. Let me tell you, if such a person,
not the culture here.
Yeah.
People are buying public office.
Governor, I know you to be a great politician. I know the governor to be a great politician, but on this one, I think he's missing it. Here's the thing. I don't doubt that the four of you, I think 4 or 5, you actually intend to keep your promises. Yes. My worry, my concern is, are you going to be able to convince your constituents that that promise is keepable? Especially because they have seen a history of betrayal in this country by this same lot at various places. So I'm just saying that I think...
Do we run away from this country?
That is how desperate you are.
You see, now why do you say that? Now that worries me.
Are you telling us that we should migrate?
No,
there are such mistakes.
No, we're just telling you should be smarter, perhaps. That's not have a deal that... Having said that, there's a
done much more than that.
There's a key issue, sir, that everybody has brought up here on the panel, which is the quote-unquote pledge, some are going as far to say, by Raila Odinga, that he would be a one-term president. Is that in fact what he said? Let's listen and then we'll talk.
Mimi nitakuwa Joshua ya kupita na nyinyi mto Jordan na kuingia katika Canaan. Nikifika huko, kazi yangu itakuwa imekwisha. Sawa? Na hawa ndugu yangu mimi nitashika mkono tukielekea mbele huko. Sisi tuko kama team.
That's what Raila said, and that has been interpreted as a one-term president. Let me start with you again, Isaac. Was it made very clear in your negotiations that Raila Odinga would be a one-term president and then hand it over? Was that explicitly clear?
Yes. So when it was made very clear, that's why we agreed.
Sealed and delivered.
I will show you in the agreement. As before, you are referring us to the famous Kibaki MOU, which no one of us even ever had access to. It was never even made public. This is a public document which you will now see tomorrow. It is already deposited with the political parties registrar. It is not a secret document. Raila Odinga has made that statement on national television in Uhuru Park, that this is a transitional government. There are several other things which we will explain to you, which we are now putting together, and we'll tell you what is that program. Why are we calling it a transitional government? Because we think we've not done it right. Several things that we will put on the agenda. I don't want to preempt that. We are having further consultations, discussions, and we'll come up with a document which will explain and will give you a roadmap, including a roadmap on setting out how to achieve power sharing moving forward. Remember, a lot of us, me and the team, are opposed to the imperial presidency that has now been seen in the in this particular term, where we have made that implementation with only 2 people trying to run government. Let me tell you that we've been against the imperial presidency since 1991, when Timothy Njoya made that sermon at St. Andrews, and we went into a serious campaign. This country went into a serious campaign to change the constitution, because the real home for everything was political patronage, that all of it reposes at the office of the president. Kenyans were against the imperial presidency. It has come back in worse forms.
Yeah, but you know, that
is what we must rectify.
I hope that you are saying that Jordan, where he's saying you will reach Jordan is situated around 2022.
Yes.
I hope that is what you say.
No, we are let me tell you, we're talking about 3 years, not 5.
Okay.
We want to achieve what we are setting out to do within the next 3 years.
You know, one of the things, you have revealed some of the fears some of us have with regard to what you say is the imperial president. You are keen to introduce a parliamentary system of government, which and that's why you are starting off with the premiership, because in the civilized democracies, when you have a prime minister, the prime minister is the head of government and he forms cabinet from from parliament. So when the cabinet ministers appear in parliament, as cabinet ministers, they are actually the executive. But when they are MPs also, they are actually the legislature.
But
and so what he is preparing, what he is preparing is that the principle of separation of powers will be compromised because the legislature and the executive will share the same bed.
Right.
And this is what you are taking us back to where we are. This is what you see in the parliamentary system.
Are you telling me that you necessarily, when I talk about an imperial presidency, I do not necessarily mean we do the parliamentary system probably the way you are imagining. Wait until I put it on the table, and then, and then we will be back here to debate with you. Remember, I don't fear debates, and I'll be here myself, personally, to come and discuss this issue with you. Once we agree with my colleagues, remember, I'm telling you that there is plenty that is work in progress.
But as a Kenyan who is fearing, what are you fearing? Why don't you tell me what you have done?
I think it's a fair point. Let's wait until the actual proposal is on the table to debate. Charles, what do you think of it?
I think what Isaac is saying, and there's some merit in his argument, is that politics and electoral processes are always about trust.
Yes.
The fact that Kenyans have become so hardened and so lost in confidence about the possibility of politicians keeping their word does not mean that you arrange your affairs perpetually with the assumption that politicians will never keep your word. Every time we go for elections with the hope that this time at least this politician will keep their word. So I think what Isaac on behalf of NASA is telling Kenyans is that trust us to keep our word this time. I think the other panelists are concerned is that apart from your word that we trust you, do you have any other safeguards to persuade us that it's not just a question of trust me, but you've actually secured what it is you want to accomplish? Is it doable? But I think we must give Isaac an opportunity to persuade us that they are worthy of our trust.
All right, and we're taking a short break on Opinion Court. We are back here to discuss whether the game now has changed for Jubilee or can they sit pretty till the election.